Did you have any key experience that brought you to like changing perspective in a way?
Yeah, sure. One, well, I think that the most revealing experience was joining social movements to have a positive impact. So when I was 18, that was 8 years ago, right? I started my first nonprofit, and we started organizing conferences and street events and public discussion forums, and we gathered signatures to start recycling facilities and closing incinerators and that kind of thing, and avoiding corruption in Italy, which is rampant. So that was the beginning point, and I think that the real turning point was when I joined the Zeitgeist movement, and from there, it just grew exponentially, and yeah. So that was the start of everything. But I think the inception of everything in my life was 1999 when the movie The Matrix came out. That was the real start. And that's why I wanted to be a filmmaker, because I was inspired so much by that movie. Like, I was so deeply touched that, I thought possibly 300 to 500 million people have watched The Matrix worldwide. How else can you get such a big impact? Like, popular culture is defined by movies. So I thought, if I can become a successful filmmaker, I can show a positive message to an audience of hundreds of millions of people. And because like sci-fi movies are always this post-apocalyptic horrible future where everyone is like either dying or they have a horrible life, and the future is always bleak and horrible and just terrible, just dreadful. And I thought, maybe I can send a positive message, maybe I can show a different value system. And yeah, that was very, very much the beginning. Yes, please.
Do you know any experiences in villages or such stuff where the Zeitgeist movement is working on to show that that can work without money or doing the resource economy?
Right. I'm not aware of any religious with experiences or groups within the Zeitgeist movement, but I know of many people who had some sort of spiritual experience that started everything. It could be a near-death experience, or you go inside a cave for 3 months and you have these moments. Actually, Sam Harris, who's a famous philosopher, a neuroscientist, an author, he had these experiences when he went to Tibet for a few years, learning from the Tibetan monks. He's an atheist, but he's very open to spirituality and experiences given by spirituality. I think these can be very powerful, and they could be attached to a specific religion, or they might not be attached to any religion. It could be just your experience. And some people have had this experience of awe, being awestruck just by, looking at the stars, and just at some point, they're thinking about the universe and its immensity, and they're like, poof. At some point it just strikes them, and they're like, wow. And Jason Silva, a friend of mine, he does amazing videos. You should watch them on YouTube. He spoke at TED Global this year. He speaks about the experience of being awestruck thanks to the advancements of technology that allow us to connect each other's emotions, and how ideas spread like a genetic code but exponentially faster. And he's very eloquent and passionate about these things. So yes, I certainly think it's an interesting area to explore, and anything that can help you understand better the interconnection between people and systems, and kind of break the spell that we are all separate individuals, that we're not connected in any way to anyone else, is helpful, because we are We are connected to our friends, we are connected to our community, our city, certainly to this planet and the earth. And I mean, it's a very literal thing. We are physically connected to everything else because we live inside a big system, actually a system of systems. That's how the idea of ecology started. Your trash can, the tin can that you throw away, if you throw it in the ocean, in 6 years, it will get to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, just by sheer statistics because of the currents, the way they're structured. And now we have the Great Pacific Trash Island, which is about the size of Europe. It's an island of plastic in the middle of Pacific Ocean, as big as Europe, and almost no one knows of this. And that's the cumulative trash, or should I say, disposed plastic of, North America, China, Japan, South America, the Australia, and almost all of the planet. So it's like we are literally all connected. And when Fukushima exploded, radiation came, overseas, over intercontinental. So whatever we do has an effect to anyone else on the planet in some level or another. So if you can help people understand that through any means, that's always a good thing. Yes?
What do you think the economy should look like in the future? Because if I got you correctly, you were talking about that people should work less or not at all. And so how should the money stuff work out? Should we get rid of money, or should everybody get a certain amount, or what would you suggest?
So I think if you reduce the importance of money by requiring less money because for instance, you self-produce your own energy, some of your food, or maybe even all of your food, you collect rainwater and you filter it yourself, you reduce your dependence on money in general. What happens is that transitionally, you start to see very different behaviors being promoted in the society. And so it's difficult to predict exactly what will happen, but if suddenly you change your perspective and you start to move into a different direction, money becomes less and less relevant. And I can picture very easily an economy where money is only needed for luxury goods, like buying a Lamborghini or a gold city toilet. Who needs that?
Yeah, but don't you think this will lead to other problems? If you look at parts of the world where people are not working every day, I mean, it's drug problems, it's, crime and stuff. Don't you think that would become more normal then?
Right, but look at the difference. It's the variable in the equation is not that they are working or not. Is that do they have their needs fulfilled? That's the first part. Because if you don't have your needs fulfilled, you're going to result to crime and drugs and other things. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the basis of the pyramid, you have food, water, shelter, energy, warmth, family, sex, the basic. Without that, you don't think of anything else. Once you have those fulfilled, then you start, to look for more, to deeper stuff. And the examples you gave, they don't even have their minimum level requirements. So obviously...
but don't you think too much free time will lead to that kind of stuff? I mean, if people don't have to work at all, what will they do the entire time?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. When they brought pipelines and the system of aqueducts in Africa and some villages, in the last 50 years, women used to take about 8 hours a day, 4 hours to go and 4 hours to come back to get the water for cooking. And so when they start, building the pipes and laying them down, these women were like, "Oh, this is horrible. My whole life has been go and grab the water, get back with the water, cook. That was my life. what the hell am I going to do now? I have no purpose. Like, you see my point? And the point is, it's not just theoretical, it's practical. You look at people who are doing things that would have been considered impossible 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, like Wikipedia. If I told you, Dan Pink has an excellent story. He said I studied economics when I was at university, and I can just picture myself going to my teacher and say, hey, I have a business model for this new thing. Like, imagine technically sophisticated people who have jobs. They have jobs. They work 8 to 10 hours a day on highly sophisticated stuff like programming and algorithms and system administrators, or engineers. And you take those people, and then you ask them to work for free on something that you just give away. It's going to be huge. They would have thought you were nuts. Like, they would have put you in a mental institution. But guess what? Wikipedia is the biggest project in the history of humanity. It's translated in something like 130 languages. The average quality of article in the English Wikipedia is superior to both Britannica and Microsoft Encarta, that have a staff of professionals paid every day to edit the articles, but they can never keep up with the sum of all knowledge of everyone on the planet. And the number of people who want to contribute to something for good is much more than the number of people who want to be just trolls and commit acts of vandalism. Because that was another thing. People said, oh, you're just going to deface the page every 5 minutes. You're going to see like dicks and political slurs and racial slurs. It was just going to be horrible. It doesn't happen. Because when you give people free time, but at the same time you give them a meaningful thing to do, people do something really amazing. Actually, they found throughout many studies that they performed around the world that money is an inhibitor to performance when you have to do some kind of creative job. So money actually motivates you for very monotonous, repetitive tasks, such as you have to do a very simple movement, like on a chain, and if you do it 100 times every hour, I'll give you $50. If you do it 200 times, I'll give you $120. If you do it 400 times, I'll give you $1,000. Something like outrageous. And then, of course, people are going to be very fast. But if you give them something that requires creativity, some kind of lateral thinking, intelligence, when they perform the same experiment, they see throughout different age groups, different classes, in different countries where they are poor, middle class, or high class, everywhere the same results. As you increase the monetary retribution for the kind of thing you have to do, the lesser you perform. That means your performance actually collapses when they offer you money, but if they ask you just to do it for the fun of it, you do it much better. And we have many examples of this. Wikipedia is one, the Linux kernel is another. I mean, Linux is now the most used operating system on the planet, and it's done by volunteers. 40,000 volunteers. It's the biggest project humanity has ever undergone. It's used on most tablets, almost every smartphone except Apple. It's based on Android, which is Linux. 90% of servers run on Linux. It just works better. And there are so many examples of open source projects where people just do it for the fun of it, or because they need to use what comes out of it, so it's in their interest. So if you actually gave people free time to do what they want, you would see a much, much better society. And I think things that we consider now crimes and not things that they're not really nice, they would go, like, the rate would go down so much that it would be so sporadic you could just delete them from the dictionary, because it would be like, oh yeah, you remember in the in the past century we had those things, not anymore. But I could be wrong. Yes.
How can religion keep up with these things?
How can religion keep up with these things? I don't know. I should ask some religious leader, maybe. I'm not a religious leader. I think, as I said, technology is an instrument. So it just augments your intentions. So if you can use you can use technology to humanize your experience and to actually create a more humane world. But at the same time, you can dehumanize everything if you're not using it in a smart way. For instance, Facebook has been criticized for destroying relationships, and you're just staying on the PC all day and you never talk to real people and you're just interacting in this virtual way. But like, to me, Facebook has been the most humanizing technology ever, because it allowed me to meet people I've never met, travel around the world and discover new things and meet with other people, because I was able to connect instantaneously with anyone on the planet. And that's just two different ways of using the same technology. So I don't know specifically about religion, but I'm sure that if religious people and religious leaders use technology in a smart way, they can keep up with what's happening. I don't think I'm the most qualified person to answer this question, actually. I don't know. I hope I answered your question, though. Yes?
Do you know any network, social network, which is able to connect people having the same visions, ideas? Looking to Facebook, I can see sometimes people posting articles, and I think they are thinking as me, because they are posting this information.
Yeah.
But I cannot search for them. I can only see the...
Oh, you can search for them. It's if you search for certain keywords, or if you search on Google for groups that do this. So, for instance, in let's say in the sustainability world, you have Avaz, the Yes Man, 350.org, and these organizations, they have their own Facebook groups and their own interest. You have Meetup. Meetup.com is a great way of meeting actually physically with people who have common interests in your own city. So that's a smart way of using technology to actually humanize your experience even more. So yeah, there are many great tools to get organized. And actually, just today I received an email of a very nice tool which is called RevDem, I think, or yes, it's like Revolution Democratized or something. Anyway, the video is really nice. It basically says, imagine if this tool existed at the time of the French Revolution, and so you see, like, okay, let's I don't know, flash mob at the Bastille at 1800, and like, you gather 100,000 people, and they do lots of crazy stuff. Very, very interesting. Free hugs, flash mobs, peaceful demonstrations that were really hard to organize just 10 years ago. Now, you create a Facebook event, you invite hundreds of people, you connect with the right groups, and suddenly, like this very event, my whole book tour was organized this way through Facebook events and just word of mouth. Perestroika was the school of creativity that invited me in Brazil, and they have a huge network of people, mostly created through the internet, but then with physical meetings with people. So I think, yeah, there are many resources, and there will be even more. And my feeling is that the tools are getting better every day, and the tools of creativity and disruptive change are in everybody's hands. If you go to Africa, a Maasai warrior now with a cell phone has access to more information than the President of the United States did 15 years ago. And if he's connected to Google, he has more access to insight, knowledge, information, and connectivity than the President did 10 years ago. This is unprecedented. And today, small groups of people, of dedicated individuals, just 3 or 4 people with a laptop computer connected to the internet and a good idea, and that's it. Just a good idea, a laptop and an interconnection, they can do things that only governments and corporations with billions of dollars could do 10 or 15 years ago. My own book was crowdsourced through a crowdsourcing site called the Indiegogo. The Yes Man just collected $150,000 to make a peaceful demonstration and organize a climate change event in New York City. You have many projects starting because of this idea of the wisdom of the crowd and the power of the crowds, getting together people to work together on the same idea. And if you don't have actually time to work on it, you can, donate some money or some resources or some connections, or you can always help each other out. We can always help each other out in some way. And technology is making it easier and easier to do. And these technologies are becoming cheaper and cheaper every year. So suddenly they are more democratized, they are more accessible, they're cheaper. 3D printers right now are, I don't know, are you all familiar with 3D printers? So they're like, printers, but they can print objects, physical objects in 3D. It's like the Star Trek replicator. So right now they are mostly making stuff at the level of maybe 1/10 of a millimeter. The most sophisticated 3D printers are actually micrometer scale. But they're going to get nanometer scale very soon. And when that happens, you have molecular manufacturing. And when you have molecular manufacturing, you can make anything. And when I say anything, I mean even things that are not even possible to do today. So, even now, which is, it's very, at the beginning, it's like the computers in the 1980s, the Atari 900 and the Commodore 64, that was like laughable. That's the state of 3D printers today. And even though they're at that state, they can print organs like liver and pancreas is too hard for now, but they can print a heart, they can print kidneys, they can print cartilages, you can print teeth, they can print prostheses, perfect fit for you. Like exactly your size, your weight, everything perfect for you. And they have like 1/10 of the cost of the most expensive previous technology prostheses, which are cumbersome, they're not perfect fit, they weigh much more than they should, and you have to wait months to be made. With 3D printers, you can actually tinker with it and make it with your own design so that it matches your personality. And I know the CEO of Bespoke Corporation that actually makes these prostheses, and they're so beautiful. I have an image in my book. It's really mind-blowing. And they talk to you, they look at your personality, and they try to make the prosthesis just for you so that it's an act of design, and you're not afraid to show it, but you actually like, look at this. This is like you are wearing it as if you are showing off, right? So, and this is today. This is not like a hypothetical 3D rendering. This is a real person actually having the prosthesis, which was 3D printed for $7,000, when previously they had a $120,000 prosthesis, which didn't work really well and didn't fit their body really well. And in a few years, they'll be able to print it in their own house. Right, so like the tools of creativity are really becoming cheaper and more accessible. And we can make stuff on our own with open source technologies so that everyone benefits. Right now, the RepRap project, which is an open source 3D printer, can print 60% of itself. So you can print 60% of the parts that make up the 3D printer, and then you assemble it. Now imagine, the goal obviously is to make a 3D printer capable of self-replication. Which means, when that happens, I have a 3D printer because I have some money and I buy it. I just make copies and then I give it to my friends for free. And then they give it to their friends for free. And suddenly no one needs to buy anything anymore. Ever. Because we make anything in our desktop. And people ask me, where would you get the materials to do it? Well, hello, like the landfills, which are the big problems now, they will be the gold mines of the future because they're full of resources. They have everything there. They have plastic, copper, aluminium, all that you need is in the landfills. So all you need is just a way of decomposing them, and technologies for decompositions are becoming cheaper every year. They are an exponential technology, and molecular manufacturing will be a thing of everyday life within 10 to 15 years. But even well before that, we can, you can buy a 3D printer for €1,000 today, and suddenly you don't need to buy everyday objects that you have in your house anymore when they break, because you can just design them yourself and print them. If you don't know how to design them, you just go to the Pirate Bay and you download for free the CAD designs and you print what you need. You print, a glass, a cup, a pencil sharpener, like anything. So, this revolution is already happening, and many people haven't noticed because it's not on the daily news, but it's really happening. Yes?
Well, I like your idea, but I think it's not that hard to convince the open-minded. What do you think about the people who profit from the present system? You compared it to slavery, and as far as I know, the change out of slavery was connected to wars, revolution, to millions of people dying. So, are you not afraid to reach your utopia? There must be something like that, like a hard cut, forcing those people to change their mind?
Yeah, so we remember very vividly all the revolutions that ended up with, bloodshed, because they made the news. But nobody remembers the revolutions that didn't require any bloodshed and they were made through diplomatic changes or just economics or cultural. So, for instance, if you take the Crown and the British Empire, we all remember the United States and India because it was bloodshed, but the other 78 colonies that just they found a peaceful way of managing the transition. Nobody remembers how that went because it's not in the history books. So I think we can do much better than bloodshed and violence, because we have evolved as a society and as a species. And one of the ways to get the people who benefit from the current system into the new system is to make them understand that the new system is better even for them. Because social instability isn't good for anyone, even the rich. I mean, it's a simple example, and it's a fictional example, but it illustrates a very real situation. You remember Batman, his parents? How do they die? They get killed by who? A robber, somebody who needed some money, and give me the wallet, and then give me the ring, and then blah, and then he kills them. If he wasn't poor, he wouldn't have been a robber, so he wouldn't have killed them. So if you create more security for everyone, everyone is better off. So it's just a way of understanding the interconnections between people. So thinking that because you're rich and you make money out of the suffering of others, that somehow that's good for you. It may be good in the short run, but it's not good in the long run because you're not safe. So understanding the connection between people is the real solution. And that's, how you influence popular culture is through, I think, books, movies, TV, that kind of thing, largely. Of course, there are other ways. This is one way. And that's what I'm doing. I wrote a book. I'm already writing the next book, which will be a science fiction short story, which might become a movie. And this will, I think, help show how people will live in different types of futures. A future where everyone fends for himself and is just business as usual 25 years in the future, and it's not going to be pretty. And 25 years in the future where actually, we move towards a different kind of society because we shifted our values. And in that kind of system, everyone lives better. It's not going to be a utopia where everyone is happy all the time, but it's going to be much, much better than the other future. So I think making people realize the interconnection, that's the answer. And have them understand that it's even better for them. Yeah, I hope that too. Yes?
I don't know, I'm asking about your experience, but don't you think, I met a lot of people from the Occupy movement and whatever, and on the other hand I met some really, really rich people. But talking about this cultural change in a way, I figured they're all panicking in a way. They're all afraid of what's going to happen. They're all afraid of the crisis, and it's not like 99 versus 1%.
Yeah.
That's at least where we got to in the dialogue is that everybody's afraid of that confrontation, and nobody has a real solution. Well, there are some people coming up with ideas, but they're all afraid. They are afraid to be the bad guys in a way, and well, maybe we had it or whatever. That would be the nasty way.
Yeah. Like the French Revolution. That's what happened at that time. And I think we can do much better because, well, first of all, we have ways of communicating good messages as well as bad messages instantaneously to a very large audience. So that's a very big difference that we need to consider when we compare to the past. Because we always have a tendency of comparing present time with past, not realizing that the comparison isn't really worth it because we have very different variables now. And I've spoken with many rich people when I was at NASA and Singularity University. Most of them are millionaires or even billionaires, some of them. And it all depends on your, how many things and how many experiences have you been exposed to. Because if you increase your cultural awareness regarding any issue, especially social issues, they were very optimistic. And one of the reasons people are pessimists is because we feed on bad news. Our amygdala is evolved to be receptive to very, very bad things. There was an evolutionary mechanism to survive in the savannah when we saw a danger approaching, and you had to, your adrenaline just rushes in your veins, and you're like, boom, ready. But today, it's not really happening. I mean, it's not really helping because, there are no tigers and wolves at every street corner trying to kill you. But you do have news that knows that your amygdala is very receptive to this, and so what they do is they just feed you bad news. So it's bloodshed, killings, terrorists, rapists, and stabbing all day, all time. But if you actually look at the numbers, violence has been decreasing steadily for the last 450 years everywhere. And in the last 10 years, even more. But the number of reported news about violence has been increasing almost at the same rate. So violence is decreasing, but news about violence is increasing. So the perception that we have in society is that everything is getting worse and worse and worse. And that's why people are afraid. If people actually realize the reality of things, which is things are getting better, there are some things that are getting worse, like inequality and the climate and the environmental situation, which people don't talk about. So the actual things that we should be worrying about are not reported on news. But things you shouldn't be worrying about, like people stabbing you at every street corner or raping you, or that's almost non-existent compared to the past, where actually it did happen at every freaking street corner. They get reported every day, 10 times a day. So an antidote to bad news is to read good books and to look at, no, seriously, like Steven Pinker wrote The Better Angels of Our Nature. It's an 800-page book that explains how violence and wars have been decreasing steadily throughout history, and that the trajectory is to have zero violence in the future, or close to zero violence. There are many other good books. Abundance by Peter Diamandis, the co-chair of Singularity University. Of course, I present to you also my book. That's my contribution. But there are many great authors writing good stuff that actually shows what society is like and what it could become. Of course, we might have some disagreements on the details, like Diamandis believes in technical solutions to creating abundance, and he thinks that that's the way we're going to get society better. I think that actually doesn't solve any of the issues, actually exacerbates the problem if you don't change your mindset. Because if you create an abundance of energy, let's say, because somehow we crack fusion energy, it's going to be horrible, because we're just going to exacerbate the effects of climate change and the resource depletion and the depletion of fish stocks, and we're just going to, kill every other species on the planet, and that's not good for us either. So I think technical solutions by themselves, they don't solve anything. You need technical solution accompanied by the right mindset to deliver those solutions. So I think better education and better, more people informed about the real issues, that's the solution. And one great resource is TED, Technology, Entertainment and Design, TED conferences. They have amazing speakers presenting actual solutions to real problems every day, and they're all for free. You can look them up online. They're all Creative Commons. My book is in Creative Commons. So things are good, and they're changing in the right way if you know where to look. But if you just read the newspaper and look at the news, you're like, fuck, everyone's gonna kill me. So education, I think, is the key to the solution.
This was the reason why I started in January one blog article collecting in every comment a new project showing the good things in the world.
Yeah.
Against the shit on the
yeah, you see?
newspaper.
It's you just know where to look. You just need to know where to look, and things may look very bright. Actually, I think we as a species, we are meant for much greater things than what we are doing now. Actually, greater than we can even conceive. But we need to go past the idea of infinite growth and labor for income, because those things, I think, are an obstacle for us to create those futures. So.
I just think that there's a lot of teaching to do. For me, I learned that the way how to figure things out and stuff, and how to multiply it. But I wonder how to. I see how fast the technology side is growing or advancing. On the other hand, I think this educational side has still a lot of speeding up to do.
Absolutely. The education is huge, and it's changing rapidly. So the biggest universities in the world, they have realized that the current paradigm of education is rotten. It's old. It doesn't work. It's been the same for 4,000 years, and it's about time to change it. So the head of MIT recently said, we either change or die in the next 10 years as a university. And so you have Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, École Générale de Paris, like the best universities in the world. They are now giving free lectures online, high quality, like HD quality, all for free, all the courses. Things that used to cost $50,000 a year, now they're free. And you can get the same quality level of education from the best teachers in the world on your phone, on your laptop, for free. You go to iTunes U, you go to Coursera, and they are changing the paradigm. So Coursera now is working towards actually giving a recognition for the courses. So even if you graduate online, you get a statement of accomplishment, which then you can use in your resume, in your curriculum vitae. And when you can use it. And in the future, being proficient in Udacity, Coursera, or Khan Academy course might be worth more than graduated at Stanford. Peter Thiel is paying $150,000 to 17-year-olds not to go to college. It's called the Thiel Foundation. They choose about 50 young adults, like 17-year-olds. I know a few of them. They're very bright people. They're like the best of best in their schools. They scout them, and they say, okay, I'll give you $150,000 to do whatever you want. Just don't go to university. Go do something useful, right? So some of them are working, on projects in Africa or the Middle East. Their job is basically to look for solutions to have a positive impact in the world, and a philanthropist gives them the resources to make that happen, so they don't need to worry about money, right? So the young gentleman, I think he just left, but he was saying, what would people do if they didn't have to worry about money? Well, this is what the Thiel people, the Thiel Foundation people are doing, and they're doing pretty amazing things. I know we have this, what's it called in English, basic income or something. Yeah, I heard about that. I mentioned it in the book. I don't think it's a good solution, because I think, again, it's just a technical patch to something else that doesn't get solved. Because if you just give people the money, but you don't change the mindset, they're going to waste their time and waste the money. So just giving everyone €1,000 a month is not going to make society any better. Right? So like there is this great quote that said, if you give a person a fish, he will die for one day, but if you teach them how to fish, he will live for a life. Actually, it's not true anymore, I think, because fish stocks have been declining dramatically, so even if you teach them how to fish, they'll be out of a job very soon, or that job will be automated. So you need to teach them to be problem solvers in general. Like, you need to teach them a different mindset. And that's not what we're teaching at kids in school. We're teaching them a profession.
Actually, it's what we take away from kids at school, isn't it?
Yeah, but if schools were designed a different way, such as you don't give people grades according to how well they perform, but you give them statements of accomplishments when they actually become proficient at something because they're good at it, and unless they become the best at that, they don't get the statement of accomplishment. And you don't judge people by how well they perform per se, but you judge them by how well they perform in the entire ecosystem, how good of teachers and relating to their peers are. Like my son, I want him to teach his classmates things that he understands better and they don't. I want him to be a guide for others and others to be a guide for him. I want the teacher there to be just a mentor, to show the way and not to say, this is the question, this is the answer, there is only one answer, it's in the back of the book. No, maybe there is not one answer, maybe there are 10 answers, and maybe none of them is correct. And the answers are interconnected. And the problem isn't, a hypothetical plane or a slope with no friction, no air resistance, and that's not the world we live in, or an economics problem that doesn't take into account all the other variables just because to make it easier, because it's a standardized test where you need one definitive answer, otherwise you can't judge what students are doing. That's bullshit. You need to make people interact with others, have them work in projects, solve crises and global issues, because that's what we should be preparing them for. And if you change that paradigm in education, and that's what Khan Academy, Coursera, and thinkers like Sir Ken Robinson and John Hunter are doing, and their videos have been viewed by like 50 million people on TED and YouTube. So yeah, you're having a big impact. And things are changing rapidly. We just need to acknowledge it and spread the word even more.
If you don't give the unemployed money and you have no jobs, what else can you do to give them the things they need?
The thing is, you don't give them the things they need. You give them the tools to make them more self-reliant. That's my solution. So I don't give you food, I don't give you a house, but I can teach you how to find a way to solve all of your problems. That's because the world is changing very rapidly, and whatever quick fix I can give to you, in 2 years it's not going to work anymore. It's going to be rendered obsolete by something else that will come in, or some unexpected new thing will just jump into the equation and you'll be like, what? Now, so I think reducing our dependence on money by becoming more self-reliant, by leveraging exponential technologies that are becoming cheaper, and by exchanging ideas and goods and things within ourselves and communities, becoming more self-sustaining as societies, I think that's the solution. And in the book I outline 50 things you can do to actually live better by spending smart or by spending less, and by making yourself more sustainable and more self-reliant. And that will kickstart a virtuous cycle, a positive feedback that will create even more positive things, and society will benefit throughout as a consequence. I think that's the solution.
So, first off, we got that saying that this perception that somebody who doesn't work in a productive way to earn money isn't worthless or something, or a parasite or something. That's one thing. And then there's the thing probably to, like, somebody who doesn't find work in a company because you don't need those companies anymore. Need to teach them somehow to find out what they want to do. I think that's the best motivation. If they have a way, the tools to figure out like what do they want to do, what makes them happy, we'll find out or they find out where they have the intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And
where they fit. Yeah.
Then we give them the means to produce, like, or to sustain themselves.
Yeah, and you should take into account that automation kind of helps you, because if you're in a community and you set up an automated hydroponic system to produce food, well, who's going to produce food? Nobody, because it's automated. You just need a couple of engineers to check on the infrastructure and see if it works, and maybe update the algorithms, and people will do it gladly for free, because guess what? They get food from there. So of course people will check on it and improve the system. So, you don't need 100% automation, but even if you can automate 5%, that means you have to work 5% less. If you can automate 50%, you work 50% less. And when you put yourself into the mindset, if we automate, it's a good thing, because then we work less and we can spend time doing something else, then you're going to automate more and more, faster and faster. But right now, look at automated cars. We're not doing it. Automated cars are working. They have been there for a couple of years. They're not an experiment anymore, but do you see any automated cars around? There is actually in Berlin a few automated taxis that you can call. It's a pilot project that's been running. It's kind of freaking people out because there's this car moving with no driver, and people are like, what? But yeah.
But then there's that thing you said they will gladly do it for free. I think in that case we need to recognize that it's not the, let's say the return on invest for what you do is not any more money. You'll be glad to do it. That means like it's happiness. It's like you can whether learn
of course
doing it or you're just happy doing whatever you're good at.
Of course, yeah. That's what.
And I think
that's what the whole open source movement is about, and and it's been proven to work. So let's just apply it to a larger scale. Yes.
I want to add something to that. I think the idea is great. I do think, however, I remember a conversation I had a while back being a pilot. I remember a conversation I had with an aeronautical engineer.
Yes.
She was very contra pilot for some reason. She argued that basically we don't need pilots anymore for planes.
Yeah.
We have the technology that can fly planes. It is safer than pilots, obviously, because of the reasons you mentioned before.
Yeah.
No fatigue, no drunkenness or whatever.
Yeah.
But I could still stump every argument she had with one little side note.
Yeah.
And do you think, as a general rule, people will go to planes as a pilot?
Yes.
And the answer is no, people wouldn't. So I think there's also a psychological factor that you can't really move out into.
I have a whole chapter called social acceptance. So social acceptance is a huge factor in having an enabled technology to be actually used. But you mentioned pilots. Well, in some cases, the pilot is doing very little or close to nothing, but they're there to intervene if something goes wrong with the software. So in many cases, people have flown planes that were already being automated. It's just that the pilot was there just in case. So, and the same happens with many other things. Like we outsource our responsibility to machines all the time, to many things. And like when you are on an ER or some machine that gives you oxygen when you are at the hospital for respiration, like there is no person pumping there with their hands. But if it stops working, you die. But somehow you trust it. And I think it's better that we trust the machines. So obviously it plays a big role, the cultural issues and the social acceptance. But generally speaking, like when I say robots will steal your job, people will find me like one job that cannot be automated. And I'm like, okay, but that's not the point. The point is most or many jobs will be automated, much more than the economy can be sustained without the workers that they would be otherwise thrown off by automation. So even if you don't automate 100% of the jobs, but only say 70%, well, it's still going to transform the economy very dramatically. So we should be preparing for that, and that's the whole point. I hope I answered your question.
The thing is probably there's already subways and cars, like you said, driving.
Yes, subways are fully automated.
There's not such a big difference to plane,
Yeah.
like whether it's the one thing or the other thing.
Yeah. So. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. And I brought a few books. If you're interested, I'll be signing them. I think that's your only chance to have your signed book, because then it's online only.
Sure.
Yes.
I would actually be glad to just present very shortly a technology that comes near to what you actually mentioned.
Uh-huh.
And it's really very new.
Okay.
And it's just starting to work in the German-speaking area.
Oh, please do.
It's a platform that's that's combining social interaction and networking in the internet. And it's a platform for to share potentials and to bring together potentials. So it's about it's brought to 7 general fields of potentials, which is resources, abilities, experiences, contacts, goals, wishes, and visions. So these all in the field of potentials are brought together by people giving in their potentials, and then with an artificial intelligence they are matched to each other, so that people can find each other's potential, even if it's interests that fit certain resources or certain experiences or certain
and what's it called this?
abilities.
What's it called?
Creality.
Creality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Creality written with 2 E, written with 2 I's in the middle of the word.
Okay.
So that's something that's really just starting, and in January there will be also a big update for the artificial intelligence, and yeah, this network is just starting to build.
Nice. Creality. Okay. We'll check it.
Create your reality.
Yeah, I kind of gathered. Nice. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.